The roads of Europe for many years have suffered from a blight, a plague even, dating back to the early days of motor vehicles. That is, of the Opel, and to a greater degree here in the UK, the Vauxhall motor vehicle. One such period of horror on the road began in 1999 with this friendly chap, the Vauxhall Opel Zafira, terrorising third-row users' ankles for the best part of 2 decades. This car has been a common sight throughout the continent and wider world. But what am I talking to you about, you might be wondering? Does John fancy himself a car reviewer now? Well, no, I've owned the same car for over 10 years and I'm not very au fait with the car world. Anyways, our story today would be caused by an Opel Zafira. Not by hogging up the road, but instead by deciding that being on fire was preferable to being an Opel Zafira. This fire would result in this. Yes, it's another car park unexpectedly deconstructing itself. My name is John and welcome to Plainly Difficult. Today we're looking at the Stavanger Airport disaster of 2020. And that was my cold open. This video wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for my YouTube, Patreon and Ko-fi members. If you want early access to the channel's videos, then you can from just £1 per month. And as always, the links will be in the pinned comment below. Stavanger Airport. This is Stavanger Airport in Norway, which importantly is around here on a map, and I do apologise if I'm going to pronounce this wrong throughout the video. Now, it's the country's oldest civil airport dating back to 1937. It would grow to not be the busiest Norwegian airport, but would come in at a reasonable third, having a passenger number level just under 5 million in the year before the world record holding coughing contest of 2020. The airport welcomes multiple airlines of both international and domestic routes. Like almost every airport in the world, parking for cars is very important, and it's ever-increasing problem as more and more people drive to said airport in the area rather than public transport. This airport was no different, as over the years it would gain 3 multiple-storey car parks. Each was 5 stories high and were built in separate builds between 1991 and 2014. The latter 2 of which are our focus for today's video. That is the one that was built in 2011 and 2014. They were built upon a concrete base with concrete steel reinforced columns with concrete framing and steel beams for lateral stability, over which the roadway surface is placed for you to park your lovely family horse and carriage. They also had a steel facade, but apart from that, they were pretty open to the elements. The car parks were unremarkable as they could possibly be, but the building had no active fire suppression systems. Instead, it was to rely on the structure's inherent fire resistance. The building was built with the idea that firefighting services would be in attendance within 10 minutes. Thus, this affected the decision for the building's fire-resistant rating. The building also had no real compartmentation, and again, it was really heavily reliant on the fact that emergency services could respond in a short period of time. Both the newer car parks were built within the standards for Norway at the time, and were placed as Class 3 buildings. But that would prove to not be enough. The disaster. It is the 7th of January 2020, and in the multi-storey car parks of Stavanger Airport, all seems pretty normal. People come and go, parking and picking up their vehicles. One such is a turbo diesel 2005 Opel Zafira, parked on the ground floor of the middle car park building. In the mid-afternoon, the Opel's owners return back to their car and turn on its ignition. Quickly, smoke, then a small fire broke out from the car. Within minutes, it had begun to consume the flammable plastics, rubber and fabric elements of the vehicle. A fireball burning up the Opel consumed all usable combustible material. This was at around 15:25 in the afternoon. As the flames grew, they were spread to surrounding cars in the breezy afternoon, unhindered by the open design of the structure. The burning Zafira was alight for roughly 15 minutes until a large bang was heard, reportedly from a nearby parked electric car. It would later be incorrectly assumed that the electric car was to blame. Poor electric car. Anyways, the fire spread and gained intensity. By 18 minutes and 17 seconds post initial The ignition, around 10 cars were burning, but no emergency services had yet to be dispatched. At around 20 minutes post-ignition, firefighters finally arrived on the scene and began to prepare and set up to fight the flames. At 15:50, or 10 to 4 in the afternoon, the road to the airport was shut to road traffic. With smoke rising further and further into the air, and with no real firefighting actually being done yet, at around 16:15, the airport was closed to air traffic to allow fire units to be redeployed off airside to battle the flames. The fire by now had spread to other floors, weakening the car park structure in the intense heat. The concrete started to crack, but even though water streams were now being directed at the building, at around 1 hour and 22 minutes past the initiation of the fire, an order for all firefighting staff to pull out was given. It was looking like the car park couldn't take any more heat. At 5:20 in the afternoon, or in the evening, close to 2 hours post the fire starting, the car park began to collapse. The first and second floors crashed down, followed by the remaining structure. The result was this, but the fire was still raging. In total, the fire would burn for another day, finally being ended at 14:33 on the 9th of January. Over 300 vehicles would end up being destroyed, but thankfully no one was killed. And no one was really injured apart from a bit of plastic smoke inhalation. Scheherazade. And this means I get to hit this totally non-patented and definitely not bought from an electrical supply store near the Pearly Way, no one died button. Over 300 cars would be trashed, obviously costing a mega amount of money, in addition to the partial collapse of the car park and damage to another. No doubt the collapse cost tens of millions of multiple millions of Norwegian kroner. But the big question was, how did a relatively new car park in a not known for collapsing building country like Norway happen? Well, let's go to the investigation. The wreckage was looked over and the site was cleared. An independent investigation was launched by Norwegian Directorate for Civil Protection, Contracting in Safety and Transport RISE Fire Research Group. They would look into the relevant fire regulations and the building codes for the car park, and the lack of active fire suppression was very quickly seen. It was found that the car park should have been built to stricter regulations. The lack of fire compartmentation came into criticism, although the open-air design was seen as favourable for smoke dispersion. It also allowed flames to travel horizontally across each parking deck. This was exacerbated by the rather slow fire response, which allowed the fire to spread to other cars, with each new car set alight increasing the fire's intensity, which then eventually weakened the steel and concrete. Steel, interestingly, is half its strength at around 540 degrees centigrade, which car and EV fires raging could easily reach this temperature. There was also a lot of criticism of the absence of active fire methods for stopping flames, such as the use of fire extinguishers, a fire alarm system that would automatically alert that a fire was taking place, and the all-important sprinkler system. This was lacking due to the building being in a lower fire rating than it probably should have been. The independent investigation summarised the cause of the collapse as follows. The engineering of the car park did not take into account that a fire could develop and spread at the speed and extent experienced in this fire. Also saying, on the basis, we conclude that the structure was not designed in accordance with current building regulations. We have no information indicating that the construction of the building was not in accordance with the design. So pretty much the building was assumed that any fire would be tackled quickly and the building wouldn't undergo strain exerted by a fire. But this isn't the only one such disaster. There's a whole list of car park fire collapses where seemingly the same lessons were never learnt. So that's my video on the Stavanger Airport car park collapse. It's going to be a 2 on my scale, and this is what I've got for my root cause analysis card. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments below. Sorry for this video being a little bit short compared to my others. Probably the next few videos will be around this same sort of length, because recently my wife underwent major surgery and I'm currently running around after the little monsters that call my house home and doing 2 people's work at the moment. This is a Plain Default production. All videos on the channel are Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike licensed. Plain Default videos are produced by me, John, in a currently very warm corner of southern London, UK. And all that's left to say is thank you very much for watching, and Mr. Music, play us out please.